Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Elevating Your Life. I am just in awe one more time, over and over. I'm just so blessed. We're just so blessed. I have a great guest for us today. We have with us Dr. Greg Hammer. He is a professor at Stanford University School of Medicine, pediatric intensive care physician, pediatric anesthesiologist, mindfulness expert, and the author of Gain Without Pain, an amazing book, The Happiness Handbook for Healthcare Professionals. He is a member of the Stanford Well MD Initiative. He is a former chair of the Physician Wellness Task Force for the California Society of Anesthesiologists. He has been a visiting professor and lecturer on wellness at institutions worldwide and teaches GAIN, G-A-I-N, to medical students, residents, and fellows at Stanford. You just have an amazing background, and it's so amazing, Greg, how you are, all these different tools. You're working in the hospital, you're teaching, you're doing so much, and now you have written this fantastic book. And first off, I want to say welcome. Thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Great to be with you, Paula.
Oh, thank you. And I love it. Is a happiness handbook, and I know that you say for healthcare professionals, and I will add to that for anyone reading this book. It's just got some great insights. It's got information. So first off, I want to say thank you for sharing this. And what triggered you to write this book, Greg? I mean, to really put out there and give guidelines and inspiration to people seeking happiness.
I have always been very interested in wellness. Been an exercise enthusiast. My undergraduate degree is in nutritional science. I've been a non-mediator for 50 years. And in the last 10 years, Stanford, the School of Medicine, started a group called Well MD, and that was convened in response to the growing prevalence of burnout among physicians, certainly also amongst other healthcare providers. So I joined that. I got involved in it. I started getting asked to give lectures at various meetings around the country and eventually around the world. And then I had some sabbatical time. That's one of the benefits of being in academics at Stanford. And I thought, well, what am I going to do? I didn't want to leave home. I have a lab here and a lot of things going on at home. So I wondered what the best use of my time would be. And it just occurred to me, why not write a book just to further the message? And so I did, and it was lots of fun. So it took me about 6 months to get 95% of it done. It's kind of like doing a house renovation. You get most of it done in a fairly well-circumscribed period of time, and then that punch list of the additional 5 or 10% that remains takes you at least as long. So, but anyway, it was a lot of fun, and I'm now working on another book. So it's been terrific.
I love it. Oh, well, do tell us, what's the other book?
The book I'm working on now is tentatively entitled A Mindful Teen, and it incorporates the GAIN approach for teenagers. So it's really for those who care for teenagers, parents, teachers, school counselors, therapists, social workers. I doubt whether too many teens will read it. It's, the target audience is those who interact with and care for teens. So that is something I'm doing in conjunction with a PhD who used to be at Stanford as a researcher and is now in practice in San Diego. And he focuses really on a mindfulness-based approach for treating teens.
Oh, thank you, Greg. Oh my gosh, that's going to be fantastic. Oh, and
it's a tough time for teenagers.
It's
been a very difficult 3 or 4 years for all of us.
Yeah.
But I think perhaps in particular teens.
Yes. Oh, thank you. I love that. And one of the things you say in the book that has just been heartfelt for me my whole life is gratitude is a foundation of happiness. I've always believed if I start the morning thinking about one thing I'm grateful for, even if it's I have food in my refrigerator, it sets the tone of the day. I really believe that.
Absolutely. Well, I think that, as you suggested, gratitude is intrinsically connected to happiness. It's a prerequisite for happiness. You know, we can imagine somebody who's poor and yet happy, or physically challenged and happy, but it's hard to even conceive of somebody who's ungrateful and happy.
Yes.
So I think that's a good thought experiment to remind us that gratitude is essential for happiness. And it's so easy to have a gratitude practice, whether it's that, as you suggested, one thought when you're getting out of bed or before you get out of bed in the morning. And I agree, food in the refrigerator is something for which to be grateful.
Yes.
We had a power outage here. It was like a wind storm in the last couple of days, and the power was off for more than 24 hours. And of course, my heat was off. It's been very cold, relatively cold here. I grew up in Chicago, so I know what cold weather is. I'm in California now. It's not nearly as cold as that, but without heat in the house and all the glass that I have, the house was quite cold. Trying to read a book at night by candlelight. But the thing is, it's as I remarked to a friend, it's such a first world problem. You know, even with no electricity, there's so much for which to be grateful. We live in a safe place. We don't have to be wary constantly as our forebears did, and as others in the world have to do to this day, of course. You know, horrible war going on in Ukraine. So yes, I think having a gratitude practice is so simple. It's easy just to sit in a chair, close your eyes, focus on your breathing, and contemplate that for which you're grateful. And that's really the start of the GAIN meditation.
Yes, yes. And something that you said that I absolutely loved, and I hadn't really thought about that, is we have so much to appreciate, but problems get our attention and good things get taken for granted. That is so true. I had not really realized that, but yeah, we can get so caught up in to what problems are or what's not right that we just kind of take for granted all the wonderful things that we could be grateful for.
Absolutely. Well, I think, you know, our brains are wired in ways that tend to veil our happiness. And I think happiness is really our true nature, but it gets covered up, apparently covered up by the workings of our brains. And fortunately, our brains have this amazing quality called neuroplasticity. So we can actually change the way we think and change the way that we are. But I do think that we have a negativity bias. So just as you suggested, we tend to focus on the negative, forget about the positive. And the other trait that seems to be hardwired into the way we think is that we are very distracted by the past and the future. So, you know, we're creatures of habit. We ruminate over our past. I think maybe that's one of the first things a lot of people do when they get out of bed in the morning. They start having negative feelings because of our negativity bias about things that happened even sometimes 20, 30, 40 years ago that lead to embarrassment or sadness, depression. So we tend to have a negativity bias, and we're very distracted by the past and the future in ways that are maladaptive. And we spend much too little time being aware of the present moment. And that is the domain of happiness, is what's happening in this moment.
Yes, yes. What would you say could be a first step in getting out of that negativity, you know, bias and going in that direction in the morning? What would be a first step in getting out of that?
Well, of course, I would recommend the GAIN practice. GAIN is an acronym for gratitude, acceptance, intention, and non-judgment. So for me, the best way to get out of it is to open the shades, open the blinds, hopefully get some light if it's time when the sun has risen, do one's morning hygiene routine, and then find a comfortable place to sit, close one's eyes, and just start to focus on the breath and slow the breath down. So slow down the inspiration through the nose, hold the breath, maybe take a little bit of extra breath in, and then slowly let the breath out through the nose or mouth. And you can count maybe to 3 or 4 on the in-breath, 3 or 4 on the pause, a little increase in inspiration, and then slowly exhale to a count of 4 or 5. And do that a few times. That actually activates our parasympathetic nervous system. It slows down our heart rate. It lowers our blood pressure. It focuses us a bit on what's happening right now. We're focused on something so natural and automatic as the breath. And then begin to contemplate that for which we're grateful. So it can be, I live in a safe place. I have a roof over my head. I have food in the refrigerator. I have heat in my home. I have relatively good health. Our health doesn't have to be perfect, but it could be worse. So let's be grateful for the health that we have. Let's be grateful for the wealth that we have, even if we don't have a lot. Let's be grateful for what we have. Let's focus on what we have. When we do that, we're actually rewiring our brains tiny bit at a time away from this negativity bias. We're actually thinking positive thoughts, not just being Pollyanna, but actually embracing the truth about our existence. We do have much for which to be grateful. And then in the gain practice, we transition to acceptance, because life is not all joy. There is pain and suffering in life as well. And we can't just wish that away. There's a formula in the book that you might remember: suffering equals pain times resistance. We love formulas in medicine. So the pain is there. It can be loss of a child or a loved one. It can be a health issue. It can be a problem in a relationship. So the pain is there. When we resist it, we increase the suffering. Suffering equals pain times resistance. Resistance can be manifest by, trying not to think about it, or making it into something that it isn't, or depersonalizing another human being. So let's actually focus on this painful experience and imagine bringing it closer and closer and closer as we do our slow breaths with our eyes closed. Bring that pain closer. Imagine opening our chest, opening our heart, bringing the pain into our heart and actually enveloping it and nurturing it with our heart. And with our breath, actually, just enveloping the pain. And what we find out is that the pain is not as bad as we might have thought. And through this practice, we can gradually discern what we can change and what we cannot change that is uncomfortable or painful for us, and begin to accept, lower our resistance to that which causes us pain and discomfort. Yeah. Then we transition to the I in gain, which is intention, because, as we've said, our natural state of thinking and being is to be negative and other than present. So if we want to be positive and present and happier, we have to have a plan. We can't just sort of relax into our default way of thinking and being, because that's negative and not present. So we might just take 5 or 10 seconds and really focus on what's happening to us right now with our eyes closed, refocus on the breath, experience the sensation of the chair against our body, experience the tingling on the bottom of our feet, experience the touch of our hands and our thighs. Go back to the breath and just really focus on what's happening right now, just for a few seconds. And then maybe tomorrow or next week or next month, you can focus on what's happening right now, on sensations, things that we hear in the distance. I often hear a plane going by in the distance, since there's a couple of airports within 20 or 30 miles. And we can spend more time in the present moment through intention. And then we move to non-judgment, because our brains are very busy analyzing and judging everything in our environment, including other people and especially ourselves. And with our negativity bias, we often do that in a negative manner. We're very harshly self-critical, for example, and this really accentuates our suffering. We end up dwelling with negativity in the past when we judge ourselves, and we have shame and regret over things we've said and done, and we have low self-esteem. And so let's actually, as we breathe with our eyes closed, have an image of the Earth apparently suspended in space, one of these beautiful NASA images, and remind ourselves that the Earth is a planet. It is neither good nor bad. We don't have to assign goodness or badness to everything. Let's just see things exactly as they are. And the Earth is there, and yes, it's beautiful, but it's really neither good nor bad. And then it's only logical for us to think that we too are neither good nor bad. We are simply the person that we are. And we can embrace that and repeat to ourselves, I am simply the person that I am. I am. I am. And we return to the breath and then slowly open our eyes, and we're ready to go out in the world. And that could take as little as 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. So that was a relatively long-winded answer to your question of how do we start the day and kind of shed these feelings of sadness and depression.
Your GAIN method is just absolutely fantastic. And I have to share, I read a lot of books. And your book, it was page after page, just put a smile on my face. Yes. Oh, yes, spot on. Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, I mean, it's just, it's amazing and fantastic. And what's so wonderful is really it's pretty simple. You lay it out, very simple, how easy, just the direction we take our mind and being in the moment and all of that. It's really a great and exciting thing to know that we can do that with our choices and the direction we take our mind.
Well, the truth is very simple. I think that everything you read in the book, maybe not some of the facts, but basically the essence of everything that's in the book, you already knew, Paula. It's all simple stuff that we all know. It's just that our brains are wired in such a way that our thoughts go away from that. Our thoughts go away from the present moment. Our thoughts go away from the positive. Our thoughts go toward shame and regret and low self-esteem, and our thoughts are cast into the future as well. And whether it's thinking of the list of things we have to do or imposing our negativity bias on what's to come and catastrophizing and imagining the worst thing that might happen, even though it is almost certainly not going to happen. And that, for most people, is maladaptive and leads to fear and anxiety. Now, if you're a pediatric intensive care doctor or cardiac anesthesiologist, it may be adaptive to think in a focused way on what's the worst thing that could happen. The surgeon's going to be opening this baby's chest. What's the worst thing that can happen? So I can plan to prevent it from happening. But in general, in our everyday lives, we tend to cast our thoughts forward, miss what's happening right now, the beauty of what's happening right now, and get into this negativity spiral where we're just catastrophizing and we become afraid and we become anxious. And all of us experience this. I think that's one of the most important messages, as far as I'm concerned, is that nobody who feels anxiety and who feels shame is alone. We all feel this way. This is the way that all of our brains are wired. And we shouldn't feel more self-conscious and, having our fear and anxiety magnified by this kind of feeling that we have a secret, that we're the only one who feels this way. And if other people knew that we felt this way, they wouldn't want to talk to us. They wouldn't want to be our friend. That's not true. We all think and exist this way. And as I said, the good news is, because our brains are plastic, they have this quality called neuroplasticity. We can gradually rewire our brains. And I think they became wired the way they are over tens of thousands of years. So we're not going to change the way we think overnight, but we can take baby steps every day, week by week, month by month. And I think if we have a plan, if we have intention, if we have a practice, we can look back after several months of commitment to this practice and really realize how far we've come, how much more present we are. And when we fail to be present and we start to be negative and start to get mired in the past, if we have this practice, a light bulb will go off and it will remind us that we're judging or we're resisting or we're being ungrateful. And when that light bulb goes off and we realize that we're doing that, we can then reroute our thoughts back to this more positive and present way of thinking and being. So it's a miraculous, accessible, and very simple process.
Yeah. And it is so true. I know I've laid awake at night, just upset with myself. I wish I'd done something different, instead of letting it go. Things can just wear on us and do that instead of thinking, okay, what can I do?
So when you're lying in bed, Paula, and you, like the rest of us, have these thoughts, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I had done something differently. A light bulb may go off and think, oh, well, I did my game practice this morning and throughout the day, in bits of it here and there as I was walking down the sidewalk or sitting in my car. So a light bulb will go off when you're having these negative thoughts and self-judgment, and maybe you'll reimagine that beautiful image of the earth suspended in space and remember that the earth is neither good nor bad, and therefore I am neither good nor bad. So I'm not this bad person. Okay, I wish I hadn't said that, but everyone does that. Everyone says things like that. I'm not perfect. I am just the person that I am. I am neither good nor bad. And this is the magic of the practice, is that when we have these negative emotions and thoughts, a light bulb goes off, we recognize what we're doing, and we go, we can have a little bit of a laugh to ourselves. Oh, I'm getting stuck in these thoughts again. They're just, I'm making this stuff up. Let me go back to the truth. And actually, even when you're lying there in bed, we can sort of reconnect with our breath, focus on our breath, take a few slow, deep breaths, pausing, taking a little extra air in and letting it out very slowly. Repeat that cycle a few times and then go back to the imagery of non-judgment and gratitude, acceptance, intention. Yeah. So it's really very easy.
That judgment, I just, I can, like see a homeless person and just wish, what I could do to help, or I could have, and different things, and it just wears on you. But yet, so you can make a decision, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to donate to a shelter. I've given Reiki to homeless people at a shelter. I mean, there's things we can do when we have that in all different directions. I think your game method is just great, and it's really a beautiful gift. And something I really enjoyed is that you mentioned about how in the winter how we struggle more. Tell us a bit about that, what that does to our mindset, and how the game method, how that can help us so much in the winter time when we can, people can be more depressed.
Yeah, I think first of all, we have to acknowledge the importance of our physical bodies. And the three legs of the tripod that really support our physical well-being are sleep, exercise, and nutrition. And so oftentimes we get a little bit out of sync. And I think especially in the winter when the days are short and there's a lot of darkness, maybe we're not sleeping quite as well. Maybe our sleep hygiene gets a little bit off the rails. So we're spending too much time with the screen in the evening. Maybe we have alcohol proximate to the time we go to sleep, which interferes with our sleep. maybe we're feeling a little tired because we didn't sleep well. We drink a cup of coffee in the afternoon, and caffeine has a long half-life of about 6 hours. So that's like, having a cup of coffee at 2 o'clock in the afternoon is having a cup of coffee at 2 is like having half a cup of coffee at 8 p.m. and a quarter of a cup of coffee at 1 or 2 in the morning. And that would certainly keep me awake. So, and then, we're tired. We tend to reach for sugary and fatty, so-called comfort foods for a boost, which is very temporary. So our diet can also go downhill. So our sleep, exercise, and nutrition are closely linked. And I think especially in the winter, these sometimes get off the rails. So we have to go back to the I in gain and our intention of nurturing our bodies and focusing on sleep hygiene, exercise, and what we eat. And then I think, what is it that really makes us feel grateful, that brings us to the present moment? I think nature, nature, what is nature? It's kind of a silly word in a way because everything is nature, but being outside and walking, amidst the plants, the flowers, the trees, maybe a path through the forest, it really does make us appreciate the present moment. So it helps us be a little more positive, and it helps us be a little more focused on each footfall on the, perhaps the bed of pine needles that we're walking on, which is nice and soft and has a subtle sort of crunching sound with our footfall. It brings us to the present moment when we're outside in nature. And of course, in the winter, we may be spending less and less time outside. So I think the remedies are refocus on the basics of our physical well-being, our sleep hygiene, get out and walk, if nothing else. I mean, if you have access to more vigorous exercise, great. Focus on what we're eating, our nutrition, to a greater degree. So sort of redouble our plan, if you will, and then double our efforts to focus on the gain elements. And I think this comes naturally when we're walking outside. So try to get out there, put on some layers, go for that walk.
I love it.
Take a flashlight if it's dark,
Yes.
what have you. But yes, I think getting kind of sad in the winter is something that happens to all of us. I think natural light is so important, especially some of us like me. I'm very sensitive to light and sound, my environment. So I collect art. The aesthetic in my home is very important to me. I really try to find a quiet place to live and a place that's surrounded by natural beauty. So I'm very, very grateful to have this home on Stanford campus.
Oh.
But yes, I think we have to actually just underscore our plan, our intention in the wintertime.
Oh, doctor, thank you so much, Dr. Hammer. And I'm afraid it's time to say goodbye. I could go on for an hour with you. Please share with everyone website or information you want to share with them before we say goodbye.
Sure. Well, I think the best thing is to look at my website, greghammermd.com, GREGHAMMERMD.com. There's a lot of media there. There's a lot of information. There's a link to the book, etc. And yeah, so check that out.
Thank you. Thank you. And to everyone out there, thank you for joining us. And Greg, a big thank you, heartfelt thank you for the patients you've helped, the people you teach, and the positivity and caring you give to so many. Thank you so much. And everybody check out Gain Without Pain. You're going to love it. Have a great day.
I look forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Thank you.